Many thanks indeed for joining us on AM Live. It is 6 on the nose and your bang on time for In the Market today, where of course we always turn our focus on what is happening in the market. And today we turn our focus on the labor welfare. A lot has been happening as far as labor is concerned, and we want to take a keener look on that. Remember, also on Sunday we're going to be observing the World Workers' Safety Day, and that will be happening, of course, in a county that I'll be mentioning much later in the course of the program. And we have our guests already in studio, as you saw, and we're eagerly waiting for others to join us also much later in the course of the program for us to get to discuss about issues to do with labor. And a lot of issues will be there. That one of them will be also the levy that people are saying Kenyans are being taxed heavily with the recent, of course, upsurge, I should say, many of the flux that has been coming across with the housing levy as well. So that also just adds another burden to the taxpayer as well. And we shall be looking at work ergonomics, right? What is happening in the offices? Do we have a safe environment for people who are working? And work injuries, people now who've suffered, during their, or maybe during the, how should I put it? People are really suffering and they've incurred injuries during their occupation, and maybe they've not been compensated as well. That will be another angle that we'll be looking at in the course of a program. So make sure you tune in, and we shall be having also the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health here to talk to us about that particular day and what is therein for the workers as well. But for now, we'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly in the dailies today. We begin with the Daily Nation. This is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation today. MPs vote to kick out Huduma number farm is the splash today. House Majority Leader Duale now says farm messed up last general election. Showdown, mass biometric registration now in limbo after members of the National Assembly vote to block French technology company Inea from doing business in the country for 10 years for floating Kenyan laws and while trading as saffron morpho and OT morpho entering into illegal contracts with the IBC in 2013 and 2017. This story continues on page 4 of the Daily Nation today. And you can see a related picture there. This is of former Attorney General Charles Jonjo registering for the Huduma number at his Kipi Juku, that is Kipi Juku farm home in Kabete, Kiambu County on April the 8th. Members of Parliament want the French firm providing the technology platform barred from doing business in Kenya for 10 good years. And this story, I beg your pardon, you can also find it on page 4 of the Daily Nation, as I've mentioned. Also, we have details here. Good connections. Company has landed major contracts in Kenya in recent years. The NAMES project is the platform on which the Huduma number rests. The project seeks to collect personal data from Kenyans and foreigners in the country under one system by capturing individual biometrics. Inea, then trading as OT morpho, was controversially awarded 6.8 billion shillings tender to supply the Kenya Integrated Election Management System in the 2017 election and was roundly accused of acting unethically in the transmission of poll results. This story, you have all the gritty details on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Ruto denied access to Moi Kabarak home is another story. The Deputy President sought to condole with the retired President, but was directed to the home of Jonathan Moi, Moi's firstborn, who died last week. This story continues on page 5 of the Daily Nation today. Nyakundi expected in court today. City lawyer who shot his son dead more than a month ago has been holed up at Nairobi Hospital since then. And Kupet and Nat clash on new syllabus. Post-primary teachers differ with Giant Union on calls to boycott ongoing training on the implementation of new education curriculum. You have the story at the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's see also what we have on the front page of the Standard. Well, the Business Daily came up. Let's see what is holding for us. This is what is on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. Squatters enter list of Kakuzi top ownership is a splash today. And it says, it remains to be seen if they will use the enhanced ownership to press for alleged rights to access land. That is a story that you want to follow also on page 4 of the Business Daily. Squatters neighboring agricultural farm Kakuzi have risen to the company's list of top shareholders, raising the specter of increased activism in the Nairobi Securities Exchange listed firm. The Kakuzi Neighborhoods Development Foundation, a philanthropic outfit formed in 2018 to champion the welfare of the squatters, raised its holdings of the firm's shares to 148,500 units in December, according to Kakuzi's latest annual report. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, Britain share slump cost. PE firm Afric invest 2.6 billion shillings. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Fuel consumption hits 3-year low on high taxes. Fuel consumption has dropped to its lowest level in 3 years on increased taxes, pointing to slowed activity in the economy and a glooming earnings outlook for oil marketers. This story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's try and see also what we have on the ticker here. And equity shed 392 staffers last year. Equity Bank's staff count reduced by 5.84% last year to 6,318 workers as 392 employees exited the Tier 1 lender last year. This story continues on page 8 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, malaria vaccine pilot raises hopes of taming disease. Remember, also today is World Malaria Day, and there is an event that will be happening in Siaya to actually launch the Kenya malaria fighting strategy. Kenya will in weeks start a large-scale pilot test for a malaria vaccine in efforts to reduce the burden of the disease. This story is tucked away on page 12 and 13, and the strategy also will be launched today in Siaya, and that also will be presided over by the Cabinet Secretary, the Ministry of Health. This is Cicely Kariuki, but you have all the gritty details on page 12 and 13 of today's Business Daily. Coop Bank unveils property outfit. Cooperative Bank of Kenya has launched a new property outfit targeting a fresh income stream. The Coop Bank Property Hub will be run under its mortgage division and will be charged with property sales and mortgage origination. This story continues on page 19 of the Business Daily this morning. Let me go back now to what I wanted to put up. That is the Standard shock report on debt, even as Uhuru goes for more. Shock report on debt, even as Uhuru goes for more debt. It says debt from our friends in billions are all given here. They're listed here from Netherlands, Denmark, Finland, US, Belgium, Italy, Germany, France, Japan, and China. And it says that the country's appetite for debt means it will now take 45 million Kenyans to work for 8 months without spending on anything else to repay 5.4 trillion shillings we currently owe. And this story continues on page 6. And of course, also experts say in the next 10 years, the country is on the verge, or will be on the verge of a sovereign debt or sovereign debt default. That is a story that you want to follow on page 6 of the Standard this morning. House blacklist Huduma company. What next? Find all the details of what is next on page 10 of the Standard this morning. Let's see what also we have on the front page of the Star this morning, and this is your splash today on the front page of the Star. It says unaccounted for. Billions believed to have been lost in contracts at top ministries. MPs want DCI to probe key PSs. PAC puts on spot officers who have failed to produce crucial transaction documents. And this story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. There is a standalone picture here as well. All that glitters is not gold. And this is the governor of Nairobi who was being grilled yesterday. Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko before the Senate Devolution Committee to explain why he has not appointed a deputy governor in 15 months. And of course, he said that it is not enshrined in the Constitution where he has the obligation of him appointing a deputy governor. It is not a provision of the current Constitution. So we leave it up to him to decide when he wants actually to appoint his own deputy governor. But this story is tucked away on page 8 of the Star this morning. Also, ATM cash theft. Taxi driver arrested, tells police he was hired by 4 men. And police disguised as church women shoot dead 2 thugs in Dandora. Not now a lone ranger. Not now a lone ranger in fight against new system. This is all about the curriculum. The story is tucked away on page 7 of the Star this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the People Daily, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the People Daily this morning. Let me just rush over there to right. This is the wrong one. Let me try and just pick that I want for you to see very quickly on the front page of the People Daily. This is what we do have as a splash today. It's all about graft. Champions of graft, list of shame. Northern Western counties dominate role of infamy as the most corrupt, with Nairobi and famine-ravaged Turkana featuring prominently in ranking. Top dirty counties, top 10 dirty counties are listed here. Mandera, when it comes to bribes, you have that in millions as well. Kisumu, Busia, Nyamira, Murang'a, Nairobi, Marsabit, Turkana, Uasin Gishu, and Wajir. That is the champions of graft. They're all listed there. You can follow also the full list on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. Baptism of fire for Magoha in new curriculum national rollout. You can read all about it in the newsbeat, page 8 of the People Daily. Ruto to Sapit, you are out of order on political cash. And of course, that is a rejoinder of what the Archbishop of the Anglican Church, that is Ole Sapit, had actually said the church should resist actually in allowing politicians to give their donations in church. You can read the rest of the story on page 9 of the People Daily. Let's see also what is on the front page of Taifa Leo. Nyumba nafuu ni pata potea. That is according to Katibu. And you can read all that story on page 2. That is the principal secretary that you had the pronouncement. Of course, even if you're contributing after 15 years, this is bound to be a lottery affair. So it's not cast in stone that you will get the house, but it will be subjected to lottery. That is a story that you want to read also on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Maelezo ya Katibu kuwa mfumo wa bahati nasibu utatumika kuamua wamiliki wa nyumba ya udhi wa Kenya. That is a story you can follow on page 2 of the Swahili paper, Taifa Leo. Let's cross the region, and we cross the borders, I should say, and we go to Tanzania. This is the Citizen. Blanket ban on plastic bags ushers in new opportunities. The government reassures entrepreneurs wishing to invest in the manufacture of biodegradable bags and proposes heavy fines for violators of the ban, which will take effect on June the 1st. And this story continues on page 2 of the Citizen this morning. Malawi, a valuable bilateral partner, says John Pombe Magufuli. You can follow the story on page 2 of today's Citizen. Also, government issues 690 billion shillings Stigler's advance. And MSD floats SADC medical supply tenders. This story continues on page 3 of the Citizen this morning. We have also the Swahili version of the Citizen, and this is Mwananchi. This is what it's holding for us today. Or is it not picking up? Mwananchi. There you go. Ukikutwa na mfuko mmoja wa plastiki, faini ya shilingi 30,000 is what you will pay. And this story continues on page 4 of Mwananchi. Also ajira mpya, mambo ya ndani, ajira mpya. That figure is given there 5,400 mambo ya ndani. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Mwananchi. John Pombe Magufuli, yapo mambo mengi ya kufanya sisi na Malawi. That is the bilateral relations there of Tanzania and Malawi. You can follow the story on page 5 of the Mwananchi. In Uganda, you have the Daily Monitor, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Daily Monitor. This is how it looks. Bobby Wine, from police peace envoy to detainee. Turn of tables here with General Kale Kayihura at the helm of police. The Kiandondo East MP Kamsinga was given a role to help police fight crime. But now, the same police have turned him into a foe. And you can follow the story also on page 4 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Also, diplomatic cables reveal Amin dealings with the British. This is 40 years after fall of Amin. You can follow the story on page 8 and 9 of the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. New intelligence reports links ADF to ISIS jihadists. This story continues on page 8 of the Daily Monitor as well. In Rwanda, this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the New Times. Rwanda to unveil new plan to eliminate malaria. Rwanda is set to launch new initiatives designed to ensure a malaria-free society. Rwanda joins the world to mark the Malaria Day today. Dr. Aimebel Mbituya Murimuyi, head of Malaria Division at Rwanda Biomedical Center, told the New Times that the new initiative will focus on prevention. And this story continues on page 2 of the New Times. Also, the genocide through the eyes of a 12-year-old survivor. You can read his story on page 17. And we have journalist lauding Supreme Court landmark ruling on defamation. Here is Richard Mugisha, consulting with his lawyers Moise Nkunta Barashi and Florida Kapasinga at the Supreme Court yesterday. And you can read the rest of the story also inside the New Times in Rwanda. If you've not also picked a copy of the East African, it's not too late yet. This is how it looks this week. River of dollars flowing from Juba into Kenya and Uganda. Nairobi and Kampala have failed to stop the flow of illicit money through their economies and are now facing the risk of blacklisting by the global financial regulators. You can follow the report on page 4. This is all about money laundering. Also, Eurobond. Kenya ready for roadshow. The country is looking to issue 2.5 billion shillings, actually 2.5 billion US dollars Eurobond to pay off its maturing debts. This story continues on page 45 of the East African. I want to show you also what we have as the editorial cartoons today, what some of the cartoonists have drawn today. And this is what Victor has drawn today inside the Daily Nation. All dirty money is clean unless proven otherwise. Hustler or Hustler's prosperity version. Chapter 3 verse, well, this is chapter 3. Let me try and see. Chapter 3 verse 4 and 5. But they've not given actually the book. This is what Victor has done inside the Daily Nation today. And of course, you know what has been going on as far as the donations is concerned to the churches. And we have a rejoinder now also from the Deputy President. Let's see also what Stano has done for us inside the People Daily. And this is what is your editorial cartoon inside the People Daily today. It says, here is your baby's birth notification. 108,500 debt. This is what every newborn baby is slapped with as repayment of the sovereign debt that we do have in this country. And as I mentioned earlier, you have also full gritty details of this in the Daily Nation as far as sovereign debt default is concerned, where experts are projecting that in 10 years, Kenya will be facing perhaps a foreign debt default. This is what has been drawn by Stano inside the People Daily today. Lastly, I just want to show you this particular picture. And that is Yashpal Guy when he was being sworn in as the expert on the Constitution. Remember when we were drafting the new Constitution? And looking on is the then Chief Justice Bernard Chunga. that is from our archives today, courtesy of our library. So those are your dailies. Make sure you grab a copy of the Daily Nation today, the Business Daily, also the Taifa Leo, and other dailies that really floats your boat as well. For now, we want to see what we have in the highlights for you. Wajir by-election is happening. Jubilee candidate Ahmed Kolosh Mohammed and Kanu's Ibrahim Mohammed battle it out today. And military council and opposition agree on committee to resolve differences in Sudan. And white supremacist executed in Texas for dragging death of black man. All is set for the Wajir West constituency by-election amid fears of a low voter turnout due to the ongoing drought that has forced families from their homes. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission says it has set up mobile polling stations to ensure all voters who want to take part do so. NTV's Silas Apollo is in Wajir and has the update ahead of course, today's vote, which I believe it started at 6 a.m.
IBC officials are crossing the T's and dotting their I's ahead of Thursday's mini poll, but they were mostly concerned about a low voter turnout, as had been witnessed in previous by-elections in Ugenya and Embakasi South. The commission has set up 10 mobile polling stations to cater for voters who had moved from the designated polling stations. Griftu Center will serve as a constituency tallying center.
Training has been ongoing. 75 POs and DPOs have been fully trained. I've talked to the returning officer and his team, and I'm satisfied with the level of preparedness. Today is when the POs and DPOs are being deployed, and I'm informed they were not even aware where they were going. Everybody has been deployed now to their respective stations.
The Wajir seat fell vacant after the Supreme Court nullified Ahmed Kolosh's election of irregularities at Kara polling station. Kolosh had contested on a Dodium ticket, but has since decamped to Jubilee, will square it out with Ibrahim Mohammed of Kanu and 3 other candidates.
We are raring to go. We have all the materials. We have already packed, and the materials have been inspected. And currently, we are just waiting for the deployment of the security officers so that we can have a brief together.
The constituency has 27,444 registered voters, according to the latest statistics by the IEBC. Constituency returning officer Maurice Raria said the agency will not transmit the election results from the polling station, but will instead tally the votes at the constituency tallying center. The polling officials will, however, use the KIEMS kits to identify voters and will not resort to manual register. Chebukati said the commission is confident that the polls will be free and fair.
As a commission, we want to ensure that the people of Wajir West, have a free, fair and credible election and elect a leader of their choice. Nothing short of that. And that's why I'm here to give support to the team and also to ensure that everything has been done to the letter.
The voting, however, is likely to witness low turnout as communities living in Wajir County are mostly pastoralists who have been forced to migrate to other counties in search of water and pasture for their livestock. The ongoing drought has been ravaging most part of the county and has seen families desert their manyatas and migrate to other parts. There are also fears that the heavy downpour could disrupt voting after counties neighboring Wajir experienced heavy rainfall on Tuesday night. Silas Apollo, NTV, in Wajir County.
That, of course, we shall be keeping our eyes peeled on that and keeping out our ears to give you the gritty details of that is happening on the ground so far. Now, 2 people have died in Meru from a suspected anthrax outbreak that has left 9 other fighting for their lives. The county's public health director, that is Mutabari Inanga, said they had received reports of the disease outbreak in Mudara and Karama in Tigania at the onset of the Easter holiday. Patients have been referred to the Meru Level 5 hospital. Those who checked into the facility exhibited symptoms of anthrax and were put under appropriate medication, even as they await the test results. Some of the patients had spores on the skin. One of the symptoms of an anthrax attack. The patients are said to have told doctors they consumed the carcass of a cow.
Meat from dead animal. The anthrax is treatable. There are medications available in the hospital, so they are treated early and to avoid the progress of the disease.
And a woman died in unclean circumstances on the operating table at St. Teresa Hospital in Kikuyu. The family claims that the deceased Helen Wanjiru was taken to the hospital after developing complications. She was 9 months pregnant.
Sasa wakati aliingia hapa ndio alikuta ako in a very bad mood. Akamwangalia akaona ako sawa. Wakati walikuwa naongea na yeye akisimama hivi ndio aliona alikuwa tu anaona akibleed. Akashindwa nini inaendelea. Akaita nurses. Nobody is caring about it.
A sister of the husband had to come, who is a nurse, all the way from Kiambu. She actually bulldozed her way and went into the theater and found that the patient had died. And she's the one who broke the news. The hospital never broke the news to the deceased.
Deputy President William Ruto met with the widow of former President Moi's son, Jonathan Moi, at his Kimboi, or Kabimoi, I should say, home in Baringo County, where preparations for his burial are ongoing. While addressing the mourners, the DP said the government is committed to improving cancer treatment in the country with particular focus on early screening. The late Jonathan Moi passed on at an Nakuru hospital on Friday last week. He had been receiving treatment for pancreatic cancer. The firstborn son of the late president is also a famed rally driver who won various awards in the local World Rally Championships in the 80s and 90s.
Ugonjwa wa saratani ama kansa inaweza kutibiwa ikitambulika mapema. Kama bado iko stage 1, stage 2 inaweza kutibiwa, lakini ikifika stage nyingine inakuwa ngumu. Kwa hivyo sisi wote, hata wakati huu tunamuomboleza ndugu yetu Jonathan, tujue ya kwamba tunaweza kuzuia watu wetu kupotea kwa barabara hii ya kansa kwa kufanya screening mapema, ili wale ambao wamepatikana na hiyo ugonjwa waweze kufanyiwa matibabu mapema.
And senators, I should say, have backed governors who are up in arms over the 38 billion shilling medical equipment leasing program in what could likely stir a storm between the national government and the counties. The governors are strongly opposed to Treasury's move to deduct money directly from the counties to pay for the equipment.
How come that it is said that national government is deducting at source this money for medical equipment against the act?
Individual governors signed a contract to accept the machines. So that's why...
Is this the memorandum you're talking about, or a different contract?
The memorandum.
Because if my memory serves me right, the memorandum did not have anywhere that said you can deduct money at source, but you can provide us if you have it.
We were invited to come and witness the signing of a contract, which we are not aware of the advertisements as to when it was done, how was it done, how did you identify, who did the pre-qualification.
For us as Kenyans, it's something to be proud about. I don't think there is any other country in sub-Saharan Africa that will have the level of equipment that Kenya will be having in our hospitals across the country.
The Kenya Revenue Authority seized 9 high-end vehicles smuggled from Oxford and other areas in the UK by an organized criminal network. The vehicles were destined for the markets in Kenya and Uganda. British High Commissioner to Kenya, Nick Haley, says authorities in the UK and Kenya will work together to arrest the masterminds behind the illegal trade.
Very high-end cars worth hundreds of thousands of dollars have been stolen to order in the UK by criminal gangs, then smuggled out here to Kenya, and they were due for onward shipment to Uganda. Now this is theft from people in the UK who own these cars. It's theft from the Kenyan taxpayer, for if these cars were imported legitimately, taxes should be paid that would benefit the Kenyan people.
We are coming for you, and we are going actually to stem these menace once and for all, because this port is not for these kind of nonsensical things.
Now, the government may be compelled to fast-track the ideas it has of tapping into the informal economy to widen its tax base, as it is running out of options by milking taxes from the formally employed. Experts at the Institute of Economic Affairs say that taxing of the formal sector has reached a plateau, and without new avenues to raise tax, the government could be staring at defaulting on debt in the not too distant future. Alex Mwangi has more on this.
So basically, the assessment on whether our debt is sustainable shows that indeed it is. Of course, we have challenges.
That is the good news coming from the Institute of Economic Affairs, but it acknowledges that the country's debt position is not sitting pretty.
But in our case, what is clear is that debt has actually grown at a very rapid rate. Actually, in 2016-17, debt service was more than the principal. So we're hoping that as the president will be going to China, he will be going to negotiate in terms of how to, for instance, extend the repayment period.
The National Treasury, on its part, has admitted what a number of economic and financial analysts had been saying all along.
I think we have to be guided by the facts. And the facts tell us that we've been living beyond our means in terms of we might be allocating counties revenues that are not there.
The government has found it a big challenge to create a reliable mechanism that ropes in the informal sector as far as taxes are concerned. It may now be required to take the bull by the horns on that aspect sooner rather than later.
But if this rate continues, because already what we are generating from in terms of mobilizing revenue has reached a plateau. We have a very small formal sector, about 3.01 million, who are paying pay as you want.
To put into perspective the debt situation that Kenya is in, imagine yourself holding a 100 shilling note.
Currently, for every 100 shillings that we collect as a country, 38 shilling is going towards servicing our debt, and that's quite high.
Kenya's economy is said to grow robustly when compared to other countries, but talk on the street is often how the growth is felt by just a few. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
You're watching In the Market. I'll tend a reminder on what we're discussing today. Of course, we'll be turning our focus on the labor welfare in Kenya, looking also at the safety of the workplace, how pivotal it is for you to have good ergonomics in your workplace. So our panelists are already in studio, but we shall be crossing over to them in a short while. Now, the National Treasury has asked state corporations to provide a detailed breakdown of the budget estimates for the financial year 2019-2020, after it emerged that some have tabled estimates which exceed the limits set by their parent ministries. In a letter dated April the 15th, 2019, addressed to all chief executive officers of state corporations, the National Treasury states that its review of the submitted budgets has revealed incidences of corporations banking on grants in excess of the allocated amounts. The Public Finance Management Act provides that accounting officers of state corporations will submit financial statements to the Cabinet Secretary under whose docket the corporation falls, who then tables the same before the National Treasury. The National Treasury is expected to table the national budget estimates before the National Assembly in mid-June. Now, rescue workers were digging through collapsed buildings along South Africa's eastern coast on Wednesday, where at least 60 people were killed when heavy rain caused flooding and mudslides. Hundreds have been displaced, mainly in the port city of Durban in KwaZulu-Natal province. Footage from local television showed multiple dwellings collapsed in the mudslides. President Cyril Ramaphosa visited affected communities in KwaZulu-Natal and told survivors that he will ensure that all their needs are addressed in every way possible. Last week, 13 people were killed during an Easter service in KwaZulu-Natal when a church wall collapsed after days of heavy rains and strong winds. Sudan opposition and ruling Transitional Military Council have agreed to form a committee to resolve their disagreements as tensions rise over how long it will take to move to civilian rule after the overthrow of autocrat Omar al-Bashir. The TMC and the opposition umbrella group Forces of Declaration of Freedom and Change have appeared on a collision course in recent days over popular demands for democratization and a civilian government. Earlier on Wednesday, the TMC invited the opposition to the meeting. The opposition movement, which includes protest organizers, the Sudanese Professionals Association, said it will come to talks with the TMC and listen with an open mind. The SPA had declared on Sunday it would suspend talks with the military council.
Towards the shore of peace, and our goal is to place peaceful foundations for the building of Sudan. The common responsibility between the Freedom and Change Forces and the Military Council has been emphasized, as well as the leadership provided by the Freedom and Change Forces towards the revolutionary movement. The fruitful role of the armed forces towards protecting the people has also been emphasized. It has also been agreed that a joint council is to be formed to discuss the transitional arrangements and the legitimacy of different frameworks and units.
A white supremacist convicted of killing James Byrd Jr. in 1998 by dragging the 49-year-old black man behind a truck in one of the most notorious hate crimes of modern times was executed in Texas on Wednesday. John William Bill King, who was 44, was put to death by lethal injection and pronounced dead at 7:08 p.m. today at the state's death chamber in Huntsville, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice said in a statement. The department said King wrote a last statement that read, quote-unquote, capital punishment, them without the capital get the punishment. King, along with Sean Berry and Lawrence Brewer, were accused of kidnapping Byrd while he hitchhiked in Jasper, Texas on June the 7th, 1998. The gruesome killing sparked the passing of the James Byrd Hate Crimes Act, strengthening punishment for hate crimes in Texas. The murder, along with that of Matthew Shepard, a gay University of Wyoming student who was beaten and left to die tied to a fence, was also the genesis of the Federal Hate Crimes Prevention Act passed in 2009. And Boeing has abandoned its 2019 financial outlook, halted share buybacks, and said lowered production due to the grounding of its fastest selling 737 MAX jet after 2 fatal plane crashes in 5 months had cost it at least $1 billion so far. The world's largest plane maker is facing one of the biggest crises in its 103-year history following the disasters on Lion Air in Indonesia on October the 29th and another on Ethiopian Airlines on March 10th, which together killed all 346 on board. Chicago-based Boeing is now reckoning with a blow to its reputation and the financial cost of getting the planes back in the air. It met sharply lowered Wall Street profit estimates, largely due to stopping deliveries of the 737 MAX jets and a slowdown in production. The production slowdown alone has cost $1 billion so far, the company said, because the lower rate means the plane maker has to pay more for parts, which are priced according to the volume Boeing buys. And lastly, world number 1, Rafael Nadal dropped a set at the Barcelona Open for the first time in 4 years before advancing to the last 16, beating Argentine Leonardo Maya 6-7, 6-4, 6-2 on Wednesday. The Spaniard surrendered a 5-3 lead in the first set and then spanned 2 set points in the tie-break, which Maya ranked 63 in the world, edged thanks to an impressive cross-court or cross-court forehand winner. Nadal, who has won the Barcelona Open record 11 times, had not lost a set in the tournament since a round of 16 game against Fabio Fognini in 2015, winning 30 sets in a row. Set opener. Nadal, who was playing on a court named after him, broke the Argentine twice, more in the decider to set up an all-Spanish third-round tie with David that era. Right, time to buckle down to business and, of course, engage our panelists who are already here with us to take us through labor welfare here in Kenya. We want to see how we are faring as far as a raft of issues are concerned that we're going to lay on the table with them this morning. Allow me to introduce to you this morning with us, we have Albert Njeru, who is a board member of KOTU, executive board member, and also the Secretary General of Kudea. Also, we do have with us as well Leshan Taruru, who is the Managing Director of Universal Work Health and Safety Consultancy Limited. We do have with us as well Andrew Miruka, who is the Deputy Director from the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health, that is DOSH. And also we're joined this morning by a Member of Parliament from Emuhaya. This is Omboko Milemba, who is also a member of KUPPET as well. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Right, thank you for joining us this morning. And we want to actually slice and dice issues to do with labor here in the country, that is labor welfare. But I'll be remiss if we don't continue with the conversation, or we continue with the conversation and not look at what is on the front page of the Daily Nation, since now we have the honor of having with us Milemba as well. You can comment and talk to us about what we do have on the front page of the Daily Nation. This is all about KUPPET and not clashing on new syllabus that we can actually, if you look at the back page of a Daily Nation there, we do have a story, but also on the front page, we just have a snippet of that, KUPPET and not clash on new syllabus. So you're not seeing eye to eye as far as the syllabus is concerned?
No, thank you so much. It's not an issue of seeing eye to eye. It's an issue of agreeing on a policy, agreeing on the methodology. And in this case, all along, when the CBC, that is the competence-based curriculum, which the government has been trying to introduce, has been moving in stages. And I think NAT and us have been together in actually putting the government on a check that this curriculum cannot be introduced without proper planning, especially training of the teachers. Mm-hmm. So where we are now is that formally the teachers have not been trained, but then the Ministry of Education currently had made an attempt to try and start training teachers. Mm-hmm. And 91,000 teachers were to receive training.
Yes.
So that then becomes a breaking point. As KUPPET, we think that the trainings should continue because that's what we wanted all along. Mm-hmm. And we thought that that would be a step moving forward. And if the 91,000 teachers are not enough, and remember these are primary school teachers, the second school teachers where I actually represent the teachers have not started interacting with the CBC. Then we were saying that we could sit together, not concede with the government and say, all right, you have done well, you began the training. If you are training 3 teachers per school, why can't you train possibly all the teachers who are undertaking the CBC syllabus? And those are the teachers who are teaching grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, instead of totally saying we don't want the training. So I think this headline is about that disagreement. We are saying let the trainings go on, let the government train more teachers, all the teachers who are undertaking this training, and then improve infrastructure. For instance, with this more practical curriculum, we don't need desks in schools, we actually need tables. So the government can also, the Ministry of Education in particular, should actually start planning to get tables in school for operation. And then they could also sit with the Minister of Education and tell them now, also this, the learners going into colleges, they should be trained on the new syllabus so that when they come back, they'll actually join the rest of the teachers in the field already aware of the new syllabus. So I think that's the point of departure. So KUPPET is saying, let the training go on, let's sit down and expand the training. If there are gaps, let's fix them, but not maybe saying totally don't train the teachers. I think that explanation.
But also NAT has been blowing hot and cold on this, because previously we've seen the Secretary General giving it a thumbs up, then again now we have a thumbs down. So we don't understand which is actually the focus. Are they for it? Are they not for it?
I think you got me very well. We want from KUPPET, we want consistency. That if we demand for this and it's given, then we can only talk about how to improve it and move forward and be consistent, so that we can be respected as teachers and leaders of teachers.
Right.
And then we have seen our colleagues come up, come down, and that's what we are disagreeing about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and of course that is all enshrined in labor welfare, so to speak, what we're discussing this morning. But let's now buckle down to business and discuss labor welfare here in Kenya. Also on Sunday, it's going to be the World Safety Day for workers. And the focus is on safety, the future of safety, the future of work, which is the theme that we'll be running under. But let's just begin, first of all, with taxation, because I think also that is a big menace right now as far as Kenyans are concerned when it comes to the burden of taxes. Let's just begin with you, Njeru, on this. I don't know what is your input as far as the housing levy is concerned. Kenyans are feeling fatigued. They're overwhelmed by, the tax burden so far. So slapping another tax on them at this particular point, it seems, this will actually break the camel's back. This maybe is the last straw.
Oh, my brother, let me also mention two things. One, every Kenyan and every employee and every citizen needs a shelter, food and clothing as a basic rights.
Yes.
Irrespective of many other thinking, it is important for all of us, these being the basic rights for workers and everybody else in Kenyan citizen, the levy we are talking about, the 1.5, for us as workers, should be streamlined to acquit itself, align itself towards a tripartite kind of organization and where people can benefit much more. We as workers, we feel fatigued by the taxation, but at the same time, it is high time we as workers are consulted fully and be part and parcel of the system to make sure ourselves that the levy which they want to introduce, which the government also introduce, is aligned to a way that the government, the employer, and the employees are part of the system. And therefore, we encourage, it should not be actually a levy. It should be a way of how people can benefit from housing schemes and housing rights of every Kenyan, not only the employees, but every Kenyan, wherever he is. And therefore, we are calling upon the government to go further and let us consult much more than just bring the levy towards only the former employees, rather than bring it to all Kenyans who also benefit from the housing schemes.
So do you think that there was no enough of consultation as far as, maybe public participation is concerned?
Public participation is still missing in fully. And therefore, we as workers, we are calling upon much more public participation to go on as quickly as yesterday.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's hear from Darius.
I think when it comes to the issue of what Mr. Njeru is talking about, the 1.5 tax on the housing, I think it's almost related to the KUPPET issue. You said the basic rights are food, clothing, and shelter. But nowadays, in our digital world, communication has become a critical part of our basic livelihoods.
Yes.
So it's very, very important, as we're also looking at the safety and the future of work, it's very important to also mention we are burdening the employees. The teachers are also part of the employees under OSHA, and as well as the employees. So when you are working at a stressful environment, being forced to undertake training as Honorable Lembo is saying, and as well being burdened upon with the 1.5 taxes. And you know, people have short-term and long-term plans based on their wages. When that gets messed up, now we get unsafe workers in health and safety, and the lack of drive into committing activities which are required by the government and other institutions. So you find people exiting employment, or other people just pretty much getting frustrated. And you know, a frustrated employee is a risky employee. So we're actually developing hazards at the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hazard for the workplace.
Yes.
All right, let me go back to Milemba on this as well. On the housing levy, not just the housing levy, but just the tax burden in general. What will be your input?
Thank you. The tax burden for Kenyans is very high. Kenyans are among the most taxed people in the world, like we have already been told and we know. And the workers in particular are paying far much more. And these taxes are both direct and indirect. And there are a number of actually monies that are deducted from the workers' salaries, which range from others that are to do with medical cover, others are to do with taxes like PAYE, NHIF, NSSF, and so on and so forth. And when you now add the 1.5 housing levy, it actually becomes very, very high for the Kenyan workers. Mm-hmm. But then what's the chronology of the 1.5 levy? This is a law that even as Parliament, we did not know exactly how it came into the House. Originally, it came into the House as a miscellaneous amendment bill, and it was not even 1.5. Could I tell Kenyans that it was originally 0.5? That's the original law we saw, where some people sat, a group of people, and finally ended up at now moving it to 1.5. It's even an issue that the ministries and the government should tell Kenyans, because the originally published law was 0.5% of the workers and the employers contributing. And then a group of people went somewhere, sat, and moved it to 1.5. So like Brother Njeru put it correctly, there was no public participation on this particular law. And the worst thing about the law on 1.5% deductions is that the workers have to contribute their money. This money go to a lottery. A lottery, I could repeat the word, a lottery. Lottery then is within the lottery that we shall know who is able to get a house and who is not able to get a house. And in a lottery style, it means that it's what Kenyans would call ordinarily in Kiswahili pata potea. So the workers of Kenya are being thrown into a national betting scheme.
Yes.
Could I repeat that? A national betting scheme for houses, where you contribute 1.5% of your salary to bet.
But you're not really guaranteed.
Yes, to bet to get a house. And if you miss a house, you are being told either your children will get a house, your children of children will get a house. And I think we cannot send the workers of Kenya into a national betting scheme. It's unfortunate that when these laws came to Parliament, both the betting law and this one of 1.5, which was originally 0.5, the Parliament, who are the representatives of Kenyans, rejected it together with that one of increasing the prices of petroleum. But it went to the president, and the president brought it back, and it required that we get 2/3 majority of Parliament in order for us to block it from becoming a law. And you remember, that's the acrimonious parliamentary session that can be remembered, where there was no order in Parliament because the MPs were saying, this is not a good law. And somewhat, they had their way out. But in the Constitution of Kenya, the earliest article, I think, could be Article 1. It talks about the sovereign power of the people. The sovereign power actually belongs to the people. And it's the people who delegate or give these powers to institutions of government, both the executive, Parliament, and other organs. And therefore now, it's the people themselves. The workers are now the people who are saying, we are not happy with this law. And the government of the day should and must listen to the people because they hold the sovereign power.
And of course, looking at Taifa Leo, nyumba nafuu ni pata potea.
Ni pata potea.
Yeah, and this is what the principal secretary was saying. This is Charles Hinga. He was here as well, and of course, he made that particular, comment as well. So it is not.
So could I add that the nation, the government of the day, outside here, there's something called betting. It's a lot to do with football. And the young people and the young nation of Kenya is doing a lot of betting on phone. Could the government be now mainstreaming betting and wants to force it across the throats of the workers to also go into a betting scheme for houses?
At the end of the day. All right. On the circle back, of course, we can continue to also hear from Andrew Miruka, who is from the Ministry of Labour, and of course, that is the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health. On Sunday is going to be, or the world is going to observe the World Workers' Safety Day, and safety and the future of work is the theme that it will be running under. We shall be discussing workplace safety, and also if you are affected in any way, you got injury, that is work injury, in the course of your work and you've not been compensated, you're facing challenges, this will be a good avenue for you also to maybe paper your questions to the panelists and how you can be sorted as far as compensation is concerned. And of course, if you have questions concerning work as well, where you are not provided for with, the necessary equipment for you to work safely, then that also will be a big issue as well. So we are looking at work ergonomics, work injuries, compensation, and all that jazz, all under the umbrella, I should say, of labor law, that is safety and the future of work. Don't go away, much more coming up on the other side of a break.
I want to mention something before we close that chapter.
Well, welcome back. You're watching live. And today, of course, is in the market. We're looking what is happening in the market. And we're turning our focus on labor welfare. And according to business management, that is ideas, labor welfare means the voluntary efforts made by the employer to provide better conditions of employment in their own industries. Its main objective is to secure an improved standard of living for the workers, which affects on the workers' psychology and results in an increase in their productive efficiencies. Labor welfare improves physical, mental, moral conditions of workers. Labor welfare includes housing, medical, educational, restrooms, recreation, canteen, games and sports club facilities, adequate wages, reasonable working hours, insurance, etc., etc. That is from the businessmanagementideas.com, just to give us a definition of that. And that is what we're discussing with our panelists here this morning. I'm holding court, if you're joining us this morning, with Leshan Derez Taruru, who is the Managing Director of Universal Work Health and Safety Consultancy Limited. We do have with us as well Albert Njeru, who is Executive Board Member of KOTU and also the Secretary General of KUDEA. Also, we do have with us as well Andrew Miruka, who's the Deputy Director of Communications at the Directorate of Occupational and Safety Health, and also we have Member of Parliament. This is Milemba Omboko, a Member of Parliament of Emuhaya, and also is a member of KUPET as well. And it is all about matters labor welfare. Let's just begin from there, and I think you had, Albert, you had something to say. I think we were done with the taxation.
No, I just wanted to say something. It is in our Taifa Leo.
Taifa Leo, yes?
Yes. A PS, Principal Secretary, is talking about the 1.5 levy, thereafter becoming a game of pata potea.
A lottery.
A lottery. So we are asking the PS, sincerely, this Saturday, all the workers' representatives will be at the Solidarity Building, more than 10,000 workers. And we are inviting him as a person on behalf of the government to come and tell us and explain to us this issue of pata potea. As quickly as possible. This Saturday, from 10 a.m., we are inviting him as a person. Don't even delegate. PS, we need your voice. Thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to add that as the teachers of Kenya, why would we, because we have had so many forms of schemes, the biggest cooperatives in this country are actually managed by teachers, Mwalimu and many others. And we have housing funds and investment schemes run by teachers. Why would the government conscript us into a pata potea scheme? We usually create similar schemes where there is guarantee to get an investment or to get a loan. So I don't think the teachers of Kenya in particular would support a betting scheme, a pata potea scheme for a housing scheme. We want to be in a scheme where we are sure that these are your savings and this is how you can get your house. So the 1.5 deduction. And finally, it's in court. We would be actually telling our lawyers to argue, to question the issue of when did it change from 0.5 to 1.5? Who changed it and which public participation was undertaken? Because I'm aware it was a group of not more than 10 people.
Who changed it?
Who changed it?
More than 10 people who changed
Less
it?
than 10
Where was this? In Parliament or where was it?
It was in State House.
In State House. So
Do you want to ask more questions?
Yes.
I could stop there.
You could stop there. So it was changed in the State House from 0.05. Yeah. Because I know it was at some point, 0.05 to 1.5.
By less than 10 people.
Yeah. And we saw also the Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, that is Senator Rotich, at some point saying that the 1.5 actually was an accounting error.
One time. That is true.
That is true?
Yes.
Yeah, and then again now you say there was a meeting in State House and it was actually changed to 1.5 and before it was 0.5. 0.5. Yeah. Okay. Right, that aside, let's just move on and also we discuss now the issue at hand, which I think is big and affecting many Kenyans.
Correct.
Which is safety and the future of work, looking at the workplaces, because there are many Kenyans who really suffer as far as safety is concerned in the workplaces. We've had even incidences before, you know, factories going up in flames and people now licked up by flames inside the factories, you know, burnt to chars, because there was no exit route or they were locked up in these premises and maybe the employer, you know, went home with the keys. So these are critical things that we need to talk about. We have also our horticultural farms here in the country where we know many of the workers are subjected to chemicals. They're inhaling chemicals as well. And after many years, you see most of them actually are subjected to very, very crucial, I should say, ailments that take them down, respiratory ailment as well. We are aware as well of people after many years, you know, they succumb to depression. Yes. Yeah, issue of depression has become a key subject as far as work is concerned. Many people are saddled with so much responsibility, pressure at the workplace. We've seen also workers, some of them, you know, just throwing themselves down from the highest under the tallest buildings here in town as well. So I think this is a critical point that we need to have a discussion as far as that is concerned. And I think the person that can also open up that particular forum for us is you, Andrew Miruka. Talk to us about safety and the future of work. This will be celebrated on Sunday, and that is always the 28th of April, the World Safety Day.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you very much, Debarl, for inviting us here. The World Day for Safety and Health is celebrated annually on the 28th of April. And every year comes with its own theme. In 2019, the theme of the World Day for Safety and Health is Safety and Health and the Future of Work.
Safety and health.
Safety and health and the future of work. What has been established right now is that the future of work and the future of workers are closely intertwined to their safety and health. That in future, no employer will ignore occupational safety and health and survive in terms of business competitiveness, in terms of productivity, and in terms of workers' welfare. This for any organization to succeed in future, they will invest heavily in the field of occupational safety and health. In fact, for the records, any expenses on occupational safety and health is actually an investment. It has been confirmed that for every single dollar that you invest in the protection of workers, their safety, their health, you get additional $4 in terms of profit. So it is no longer, this is evidence-based research that has confirmed this. And that is why it will be critical for future employers who are present now also to consider occupational safety and health as their priority number one in every decision that they make about workers. Because it will not be business as usual for organizations that do not invest in occupational safety and health. Things have changed, and the workers are becoming the center of attention in terms of productivity. Yes.
All right. Let's hear from also Leshan on this, because I think also you've been on the ground and you've seen in practical terms what we're talking about when it comes to safety and health of the workers. Just give us a picture as we just lay the ground for this discussion as far as what are you learning on the ground?
What you're learning on the ground, but before I go there, allow me to comment on a story which you aired in Meru of the anthrax, the 2 people who died of anthrax. We've had the similar trends in, I think, in West Africa of Ebola. That is critically a biosafety issue, which is pretty much encompassed in our health and safety as for the employees and well-being as well. So when we get these things coming, we need to ask ourselves many questions in terms of exposure of people who work in different sectors. But if I might go back to what you've asked, safety and health and the future of work. Safety is the future, is at the heart of the future. The trends which are coming up in comparison to previously, we have the Agenda 4. In the Agenda 4, you talk about manufacturing, universal healthcare, affordable housing, and food security. All those are encompassed around safety. So when you talk about housing, construction, that's where we have very many issues. You talked about agriculture. Yes, we have a lot of horticultural flower farms and floriculture and horticultural industry where they employ a lot of people. If you go to Naivasha, Nanyuki, and those areas, progressively we've seen compliance in terms of them respecting occupational health and safety and actually putting part of their mandate and core business. It's been slow but sure. The laws came in 2007, but they're still referred to as the new labor laws. Almost, I think it's a decade now, right? Because it was in October 2007 when they came on board. So acceptance has been slow, but it's work in progress. But then if you come back and ask yourself, why are we facing very, very many challenges? Is it really because as a country we're encompassed around corruptional issues, around being unsafe, and we've learned it from, we get it from a very young age, from schools? So those are the questions which we ask ourselves. As the theme of this year is safety and the future of work, we still find very interesting statistics. For instance, every day 7,500 people die globally, and 6,500 die because of work diseases. But what's most intriguing is out of every 100,000 deaths due to fatalities at the workplace, 17 of them, Africa has the majority number, which is 17. And we have countries like Kenya who we employ a lot of people. So we have a lot of fatalities. 17 is a huge number when you talk about daily in the entire Africa. If you break it down into the in the countries, that means in every 7 days we have one fatality of a Kenyan through an accident at the workplace. So as we progress to safety and the future of work, we need to ask ourselves many questions. One of the questions we need to ask, how do we surpass compliance? Yeah. That's the first question. And then, why does safety only receive attention during disasters? Yeah. At times, it's completely blank. And then, the premise of safety is through a culture of prevention. Safety is supposed to prevent you from accidents. But as Kenyan and as different organizations, and I would put the light on KOTU and even DOSH here, they come in mostly after an incident has occurred. So we need to, I think when you talk about the future of work, we need to progressively ask ourselves, what can we do to mitigate and address risk, to do a risk assessment to address all the safety concerns prior. Yes.
All right, let's hear from Albert Njeru on this as well. Labor inspectors, I think, also is a big issue when it comes to people who are facilitated to do the labor inspection. They're very dismal or dismally, facilitated. I think also that is, adding a wrinkle into, the smooth process of this particular work that we're talking about, which is, the inspection itself.
Let me come out clear, and every Kenyan knows this, that once one person is healthy, the rate of productivity creates a lot of wealth. And therefore, it is important that the government and all the participants, including the Kenyan citizens, realize that people and workers who are healthy, they will create an environment which is able to produce a lot of economic growth. Unfortunately, in Kenya today, our Ministry of Labor is very, very understaffed. Understaffed to an extent that the issues of safety and health is not a priority. Why would I say it's not priority? Because the government has none. Actually, right now, I think they are around less than 30 government inspectors in terms of ministry to inspect the factories, to look at the issue and mitigate the issue of health and safety. As a result of that, the employers have been left just to run their business in a ad hoc way. So it is important that we realize today we need to embark on strengthening the inspectorate department in terms of Ministry of Labor so that the safety of workers across the country is enhanced and not to wait until the last minute when we are reacting instead of becoming active in a way of mitigating and educating our members on how we can eliminate issues of safety in our industry. So as COTU, we are standing firm and saying it is high time we make sure that the environments of workers across the country is safe, so that tomorrow our workers can be more productive and make sure that anything being produced is to the standards across the world. Yes.
Right. Let's hear from Mr. Mboko.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you. The knowledge we have gotten from the government officers here about 28th April being a World Safety Day, celebrated every year. This theme of the year being safety and health
and the future of
for
work.
the future of work. The theme, very good, and you will note from the point go that this is one celebration that is not very popular, it's not very well known by many workers and very many Kenyans. It means that the safety of workers is not an item that the government has fronted as a very important thing. It's not flagged out clearly. And that is where I begin from, because it is the duty of the government to protect the workers and all other Kenyans alongside the workers. So we have many workers that are hurt at the workplaces, especially the factories where Njeru comes from. He has an array of many workers. Correct. The workers in the agro industry, the ones who are working in the flower farms, are thoroughly affected by these safety network issues. The workers in the factories equally are highly affected. Most of them have lost their limbs and have not been paid. And the ones in the agro-based flower farms and so on and so forth are actually losing their lives slowly. They are dying slowly because of the chemicals. COTU has done very well, especially the COTU General Secretary Atwoli has been on the forefront on trying to push for the applied, but the government has not been picking it. In the sector of teaching, the teachers are also affected. Many teachers die of chest-related diseases because of the chalk dust. And it has been our ply to ask the ministry and government authorities to actually bring even superior chalk that would not dust their throats and so on and so forth. But worst off in the teaching sector has been the direct attack on the teachers of Kenya. And just to remind you, so many teachers have died in the northeastern part of Kenya, and they have not been compensated. Teachers have also died courtesy of being attacked by students. I'm just vividly jogging your minds and the minds of Kenyans. And one such a case was very recently when a student killed a teacher, and it goes on like that. Others have been attacked by parents. In Huisero, just my neighboring constituency, sometimes back, parent went into an office with a machete and killed a teacher. And it goes like, these are the compensation issues that we are talking about. But the law, which was made alongside the other laws of labor, what my brother talked about as the 7 laws of labor. I think that's what you said. Yes, yes. One of them was the Workman Compensation Act. But this Workman Compensation Act received a lot of resistance, not only from the employers, but also the government was slow to actually help the workers on this. Because immediately this became a law, there was an aspect of let every worker be insured by the employer and be insured by a specific government chosen together with workers insurance scheme that is reasonable. But the employer said, no, we want to insure these workers with any insurance firm. There was the issue of compensation outside the working place, if we may remember. And again, the employer said no. And what happened is that the employers went to court and took this particular law to court. And they went to the magistrates' court. They did not go to the labor, the industrial courts. To date, I think there is haggling and hustling between the leaders of the workers led by COTU General Secretary Atwoli and the government authorities on how to return that matter back to the labor court. So for me, because I can see your body language, is actually the government to, that's why I want to conclude, is the government to actually take a front seat in ensuring that the safety of the workers, not only the teachers in Kenya, is actually given a little bit of frontation.
Yes, and we shall continue with the discussion a bit. Of course, also we don't want to lose the fact that today is a big day in Wajir, where we have the Wajir West by-election, which is happening on the ground right now. When we circle back, we'll continue with Andrew Miruka to tell us briefly on what the issues have been raised by our panelists as far as also the inspectors are concerned and some of this work compensation are concerned. And if you're watching this morning and you've been adversely affected during your work and you've lost a limb or you've lost maybe your sight, your hearing, any injury of the sort, and you feel that you are fairly dismissed from work as well, this will be a good avenue for you as well to raise your concerns with the panelists so that we may be aware of what is happening, what really happened. Are you suffering? Were you compensated? Let's cross over now to Silas Apollos, who's standing by and is standing at the ready right now to keep us apprised of what is happening in Wajir by-election. Good morning, Silas.
Yeah, good morning, Debarl, right here from Wajir. We right now at Wajir Girls Secondary School, one of the polling stations, of course, in the vast county of Wajir, in the vast constituency of Wajir West. And just as you can see from behind me and around, people already lining up to take up the vote of their MP after, of course, the IEBC decided to hold the elections today. It's been quite an interesting morning already. People already up here in Wajir West constituency just to cast their vote and have their say in the by-election that came up after the Supreme Court nullified Ahmed Koloshe's election some months back. It's quite an interesting one. Of course, IEBC yesterday had a press conference with journalists, a story that we ran yesterday. There were a number of concerns, of course, raised by IEBC. This is a county that is a nomadic, basically pastoralist community. So there have been a lot of concerns that have been raised in terms of voter turnout. IEBC earlier on saying that there's been a lot of low voter turnout, especially in the by-elections. If you remember, there's the Embakasi by-election and also the Ugenya by-election where there are a lot of low voter turnout. So there's been a lot of concerns, and those concerns could be, of course, here also in Wajir West by-election. We expect people to continue voting today. There are a lot of polling stations that have been set up. Of course, in terms of people being, the community being pastoralist, IBC today yesterday said that they've set about 10 mini polling stations for mobile polling stations, rather for those who moving up and down from the pastoralist community to be able to cast their votes. Those are some of the concerns that were raised. We'll be keeping abreast just to check what exactly is happening and to update you in our subsequent bulletins about how the voting has gone through. We've been informed, of course, that Ahmed Koloshe is expected to cast his vote here at around 8 a.m. We'll be keeping that abreast just to check and know what happens. Of course, the Kadu candidate also is expected to cast his vote sometime today in the morning. We'll be keeping also that on check just to see what happens and update you in our subsequent bulletin. But as that's now, the process has already started. It's going. Planes have been registered from voters, and of course even the IEBC says it's going on smooth. But we'll be speaking with IEBC officials later just to tell us what is happening. The constituency tallying center has been set as a grief to pastoralist center, which is about 50 kilometers from this place. We'll also be keeping that abreast just to see what happens. So we'll be updating you in our subsequent bulletin. Back to you, Debarl.
Many thanks indeed, Silas Apollos there. And of course, we shall be following that with you much later in the course of the program today. That is happening in Wajir today. Actually, I should say voters woke up very early in the morning, 6 a.m. on the nose. They were actually on the ground to cast their votes. So we shall be giving you an update of what is happening as far as our subsequent bulletins are concerned much later in the course of the program. But for now, we continue with the conversation, the pace here, and we're looking at labor welfare, focusing solely on safety and health and the future of work. And I'm actually mentioning the fact that if you've been affected during the course of your work and you've been injured, you've not been compensated. Why can't you let us know on that? Were you compensated? Were you also treated fairly? Have you been dismissed unfairly? These are the conversations that we're having here. Looking at depression, which also is the biggest threat to the workforce as well currently, that also is a focus of our discussion. You're watching In the Market here on AM Live. So we promised to circle back with Andrew Miruka. First of all, there are after issues that have been raised here. First of all, the issue to do with labor inspectors from the ministry. We feel that you're not fully capacitated to work effectively as far as the inspections is concerned in the country. Compensation, I think, is one of them as well that has been raised. These are Act 7 laws that are also on the table that we shall also be thrashing out. But just talk to us on the aspect of labor inspectors in the country.
Thank you very much, Debarl. First of all, I think I need to correct.
Please do.
But I thank our brother Njeru for mentioning that the number of inspectors is actually low. I think we can not disagree with that, but it is not 30. We have almost 100, particularly occupational safety and health officers. And I think the government is in the process of planning to recruit more. And I think this is an area where the government is taking very keen interest to ensure that all workers in all sectors of the economy are protected against workplace health hazards. So that is something I could say that is work in progress, and the government is going to address it in due course.
But through Debarl, could the government officer say something about the lack of staff within the labor ministry?
Okay.
Because that's the direction he's taking. I think Brother Njeru is very, very correct.
I think he's still building up on his point.
Okay.
Yeah, let him have it.
Yeah. Although I wanted to leave it at that point, because as I've said, it is work in progress. And I've acknowledged the fact that we may not be enough. There are international standards as to the ratios of labor inspectors and occupational safety and health officers. And this is an area where I think Parliament can also try to push so that we have these ratios fulfilled in the country. Now, on the issue of teachers dying because of chalk dust, and on the issue that was raised by Deshan about that the government comes at the tail end of all these things, I think the correct position, and I'm sure Deshan, you are aware of this, is that DOSH is at the forefront of addressing occupational health issues from all corners. One of the things that we have done is to approve, as the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services, we have approved almost 100 designated health practitioners. And their main purpose is to conduct annual medical examinations for all workers that are exposed to hazardous substances. And if chalk dust has been considered a risk factor for teachers, then this is an area where we need to see the risk assessment done. Risk assessment has to be done, and this is also a requirement under the Occupational Safety and Health Act, Section 6, subsection 3. So risk assessments are a requirement, so that you identify all the things, all the hazards in the workplace that can cause ill health or can cause or lead to any form of occupational disease. This is very important, such that if teachers die, then it means that whatever they are exposed to is highly hazardous, and therefore they must undergo annual medical examinations. Annual medical examinations are very important for purposes of early diagnosis and early treatment. Occupational diseases, you know, as we are all aware, develop over time. And if we are not able to continuously monitor exposures within the work environment itself, then we will not be able to detect them at the right time, and therefore provide the appropriate remedial action. I agree that some teachers have lost their lives, and this is highly regrettable in terms of attacks, even all these attacks by students and parents and other people of ill motives are actually workplace terror. We call them workplace terror. They are some form of workplace bullying. And this workplace bullying are present, if you allow me to say, it's widespread.
It's widespread.
And that is why right now estimates show that between 10 to 70% of employees in this country suffer some kind of mental stress.
True.
And that is why we are asking employers, can you go and sit down and do a risk assessment for all the tasks, all the jobs, all the equipment, and all the workplace designs that you have, so that you are able to identify these risks in good time and put in mitigation measures. This is what we should be looking at. And that's why I said in my opening remarks that safety and health will be at the center of the future of work. Nobody will neglect safety and health and think that business is as usual.
Right.
Yeah.
When we come to safety and health, we normally think that this is just, maybe a preserve for the factories.
Yes.
Yeah, people always just think about factories and the Jokali sector. This is where now we should try our focus on safety. But could we just try and break that particular paradigm and open the space that it is not just the factories and the informal sector, that safety also is in our offices, right? It should be in our offices. The seats that we actually sit on the whole day truly affect also the stature of a well-being as well. Many of them complain they have backaches, and unbeknownst to them, it could be maybe the seats they're actually sitting on, which the office is not providing good facilities to enhance also the workers and for them to sit properly, the posture as well. These are small things that you want to discuss this morning. Even maybe the AC, right? Yes. Over time, you're inhaling that and you get affected, but the company will not compensate you, unbeknownst to you, because this has been happening, over time, and now you're affected. You have respiratory complications as well. Let's just hear from you, Leshan.
Yes, Mr. Debarl, first of all, I'd address that, but before I go there, I want to clarify what I said about DOSH coming in.
Yes.
I said DOSH is supposed to come in when it comes to addressing issues. They normally come in at last. The challenge is this. Mr. Miruka, you've talked about risk assessment in schools. So the teachers don't have the competence to conduct that. Most private schools are now compliant and slowly engaging. But the issue which we are facing, for example, the Moi Girls fire, my question is, where does DOSH come in terms of ensuring that a risk assessment is done or developing a curriculum that the school will follow? Because the moment you tell teachers or schools to conduct risk assessment, they don't have the competence, they don't have the curriculum, they don't have the policies. What do? And then engaging private entities like us, to them is a challenge because it has to undergo different ministerial places. So that's a challenge which I think we're facing in terms of compliance of school and in teachers. Because, for instance, prior, in the 50s, as you said, it used to be called the Factories Act or the Factories Ordinance.
Yes.
Which means health and safety was pretty much covered only in factories. Then it became Factories and Other Places of Work Act. Factories was still the key. Then in 2007, we came up with OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Act. That covers everywhere. For instance, even in a vessel or a vehicle, you as a driver, that's your workstation. And they should be, for example, policies that you're supposed to follow. You're supposed to know where your fire extinguisher is. You're supposed to know the exit, which you can use in case of a fire.
Yes.
So all these things are supposed to be encompassed in the Occupational Health and Safety Act and as a person. Now, when it comes to the issue of office safety is actually a key element right now that we are facing. Most people develop injuries, for example, carpal tunnel syndrome on your hands due to posture and sitting, then you're overextending your hand, then eventually you develop ailments and you overstretch your fingers. Some people develop headaches because
there's a Carpal syndrome on the keyboard,
on the keyboard. Some people develop continuous headaches because they work in a place where there is non-ionizing radiation. The law is there, which is supposed to cover when you do a risk assessment. You're supposed to address that. The issue of ergonomics is actually mentioned in law, but there are no codes which are attached to make it mandatory. But I'm sure as we progress, new codes have come. It is mentioned that you're supposed to everything should be ergonomical. Your chairs, your posture, the lifting weight capacity. That's where discrimination comes in terms of men and women. There are some lifting weights that women are not allowed to carry in the law. So ergonomics is a challenge which is there. If you go talk to a chiropractor, they'll tell you most people who suffer from back injuries are no longer employees who work in the factory. They're actually guys who are sitting in the offices because either they sit for too long because of work pressures, or they don't have the right appropriate chairs or desks. Maybe their desks are too high, too low.
Yes.
But because of, again, the challenge which we face in Kenya is unemployment, you actually learn to operate and work in the most unsafest conditions. So when you talk about safety and the future of work, it encompasses all that. Where does DOSH come in terms of school? Where do we do our risk assessments in the offices to ensure that are we sitting in the right position? I know companies who have actually invested in ergonomical chairs, and eventually we are still doing statistics, but the people become productive over a longer period of time because now there's that motivation of getting to work. You deliver more, you feel you're able to stretch yourself, and the moment you're comfortable working or doing something, you actually deliver it to the best of your knowledge. As Mheshimiwa said, when it comes to teachers, I think the Constitution is very clear. Every worker has a right to reasonable working conditions. So compensations in regards to the teachers, I think, is an issue which has to be addressed. But I know there's a challenge between who's the authority when it comes to WIBA, which is the Workmen's Injury Benefits Act, versus the other bodies.
Thank you. Let's hear from Albert.
Thank you, my brother. Let me say that it is very unfortunate that most of us look at the issues of safety and health in terms of only bodily harm, body health, and we forget our economic capacity of a human being be able to purchase and be able to spend. One of the things that the workers in Kenya are lacking is the capacity to purchase in terms of financial strengths, in terms of financial ability, in terms of generation purchasing anything. I'll tell you something. Once I'm not able to purchase a suite for my child, I can assure you, when I reach that house, stress starts because the child will be asking for a suite. The place will become very unhealthy for me to sit in when my child is crying. So economically, a worker should be financially be able to purchase something for the welfare of the workers. That is why my brother is talking about fair remunerations in terms of constitution. Therefore, we as workers in Kenya, we are not only asking for fair remuneration, we are asking for a minimum wage so that that wage can be a wage of a living wage. So that now the issue of health, safety, and future of work can be maintained. This year, it is important that the government realizes we need to capacity our people so that the house where you are coming from, where I'm coming from, becomes the best safety place to live in first, before even I go to my office. Otherwise, if it is not going to be that way, it will be very difficult. So, ourselves as workers, we are saying home. Well, you remember when we were talking about nyumba, should be the first place where safety and health is beginning. And therefore, the parents, any worker who is working, whether formally or informally, is capacitated to make sure that he can afford housing, clothing, education, and other necessities. Because if I'm not happy, and I'm reporting to nation today, I can assure you productivity will be almost minimum. So it doesn't begin here, it begins where we are coming from. But the government should give us a living wage.
Thank you. Right, Andrew Meruka, you want to respond to some of these issues that are being raised on the desk here. And also on social media, we have Bill Graham saying that even the computer light you're using is a hazard. Ergonomic aspect of tools and equipment at a workplace. This is what he's mentioning. We have also Steve Kissinger saying the Ministry of Labor ought to raise awareness and change attitude among workers as well. We have Samuel Rutwa saying that taxation in Kenya tends to favor the rich, and highly earning for a ceiling is set for a maximum taxable salary, but not above lowly paid. Exemption falls below starting salary scale. In real, you can see who shoulders tax burden low to mid class. I leave it for you to decipher that as well. And Raps Joseph said Kenyans are the people who are mostly taxed, and the worst part of it is that the money collected is looted by people in power, hence keep on going for loans. Too unfortunate. Andrew. Did I jump? I jump you.
Let me add him something.
I think I jumped. I will come to Andrew.
Because as government, when you talk about, for instance, not only teachers, but a section of any workers, whether in factory, outside factory, that is affected by issues of safety at the workplace. And a very good explanation from the government that there's need, and I even took my notes, annual medical examinations to prove that a certain item is hazardous to a given working team. Then again, us as workers, our work is to, and representative of the people, is to raise alarm. But the instruments of testing, finding out which hazardous working tools are in a place and are harming a particular group of workers, again, is an issue of government. You know, governments came up because the people surrendered all their powers to a group of people to actually manage their affairs. And in managing their affairs, they have actually given them power, they have given them funds, and they have given them the authority to execute and implement. So again, it goes back to government. Because the teachers of Kenya will not get labs to start proving how chalk is endangering their lives. It's again the government, and it's their responsibility to look into that type of chalk, just using as an example, or any other, the chemicals in the flour industries in Naivasha, that this is lead-related products, that this is harming our people, and therefore we prove it and we actually help the people. So us as workers who succumb to government, I thought that should come out clearly. And then lastly, we should see in the budget lines of the Ministry of Labour, from Parliament perspective, what are they doing to actually promote this safety at the workplace? Because once we don't see the budget lines in the budget, then it means the government is doing nothing about it. And sometimes, yes, so we have to see the budget lines.
All right.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Thank you so much, Debarl. I think I want to start by confirming that schools are workplaces. And just like any other workplace in this country, they must comply with the Occupational Safety and Health Act. They must also comply with the Work Injury Benefits Act. These laws were promulgated in 2007. Now, on the issue of insuring workers, I think the appeal court has pronounced itself very, very well on this. And there is another appeal at the Supreme Court, so I will not comment further on that. What was envisaged in law under the Work Injury Benefits Act is that every worker would be insured against all workplace risks, such that in case of any accidental injury, then the insurance would pay. That is the basic arrangement. And any employer who can confirm that they have complied with that particular requirement are actually under no other obligation other than outside law. So within the law, that is what they need to show. And once they are able to establish that, then they have complied with the Work Injury Benefits Act. So it should be clear on that. Now, on the issue of the role, the Occupational Safety and Health Act has actually alienated or appropriated different obligations to different partners within the work environment. We have the employer, we have the owner of the workplace, we have the occupier, we have the employee, we have the employer. All these, the roles of the employer are clearly defined. The roles of the employee are also clearly defined. So with respect to risk assessment, it is the duty of the employer under Section 6, subsection 3, to conduct risk assessments. And based on the results, put in place appropriate mitigation measures to ensure that workers do not suffer any other risks. Now, on the issue of workplace ergonomics, in particular, I want to read the Occupational Safety and Health Act, and it says, every employer shall take necessary steps to ensure that workstations, equipment, and work tasks are adapted to fit the employee and the employee's ability, including protection against mental strain. This is one of the most powerful provisions of the Occupational Safety and Health Act, because it compels the employer to ensure that whatever activity that they have in place in terms of equipment design, task design, and work environment design fits the employees. So it has to fit. There is no shortcut about it.
Then one will ask what constitutes a mental stress, because that is so broad. Yeah, according to the tax designs, what really constitutes a mental stress?
Well, there are so many causes or factors that determine mental stress. One of the simplest is workload. If you are given workload beyond your ability, you are not able to perform to optimum. So that will lead to work stress. There is also the physical environment. If the physical environment is noisy, full of fumes, dusty, all this will affect your mental strain. Now, that on the side of workplace ergonomics, what has been shown right now is that back pain or any pain associated with musculoskeletal structures, that is the flesh and the bones, any strain that is associated with them contributes largely to absenteeism from workplaces. And that is why it is a benefit to the employer to ensure that every work environment conforms to ergonomic requirements. It is to their benefit. Because if people are not able to come back to work tomorrow because they are suffering a back pain or because they have gone to hospital for some headache, it is a cost to the employer. So these are the costs that occupational ergonomics seeks to address so that employers do not suffer low productivities at the workplaces.
Right.
And the employees also do not suffer ill health.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's maybe take a case in point, even as we're preparing our headline thoughts, briefly, and we'll hear from Leshan as well. We had the issue of lead poisoning. You remember the Owino Uhuru slums or in Mombasa. And this is not just coming from the factory itself, but the effluent, going into the river and affecting the neighborhood as well. Yes. We can talk about this collateral damage and how people can, maybe the arm of the law is, well, how can I put it? On the collateral damage aspect of it, I don't know how it's really captured in the law and how people can actually get compensated. If there is a factory and then the neighboring, and environs there, they're affected by, for instance, the lead, where we saw miscarriages happening and yes. babies also having lead load that is heavy metals actually in the body that is affecting them. Some of them subjected to, I think, cancer as well of the blood. How then do we approach such a matter with the company and the neighborhood? Briefly, let's just hear from Leshan. And yes. what is happening to this particular case in Owino Uhuru slums?
That indeed was a sad event at that particular time. You see, before you become a workplace, you have to register as a workplace through DOSH. When you register, you're supposed to declare the chemicals or the metals that you're going to be using in your operations. Then DOSH does not work by itself. That issue was mostly an environmental and NEMA concern. And the same way climate change affects OSHA in terms of exposure to agrochemicals and the time it takes to disintegrate, this event was actually very sad because lead has adverse effects on human beings. You clearly know the miscarriages happen. Then there's also a long-term effect. So in terms of when you come producing other babies or the neighborhood itself. And then when it comes to also release of effluents, I don't think DOSH comes in on that particular part because DOSH, as Mr. Miruka said, DOSH comes in in the beginning stages to ensure that you are actually in compliance. Then continuously, you're supposed to conduct a health and safety audit, which you submit to DOSH. And that power has been given. The company is supposed to appoint a private person, entity to do it, like the different registered experts. You're also supposed to train employees on the risks. So if you're using lead, for instance, you're supposed to ensure that you provided proper PPEs to the employees, and you ensure that you have zero effluents which is going to the neighborhood or to either to any aquatic environment, to land or whatever. You need to have proper areas of how you're going to decommission the effluents. So that's more of a NEMA concern. And we talk about, or DOSH comes in just to ensure that these are the chemicals that you're going to be using. And if you did not declare the chemicals at the beginning, that means you've contravened the law. And once they do the inspections, they can actually shut you down. But then the effect, sometimes you find out that problems occur. That's when we react, as I mentioned in the beginning. So we need to develop, progressively develop proactive measures to ensuring that these companies that are known to be using, for example, type class 1 of chemicals are properly investigated and inspected by all the other bodies. And that's why when you talk about the future of work, one of the key elements is saying is how can OSHA work with other industry, other fields, other subjects, other class, for instance, other authorities. For instance, the WARMA, the Water Resource Management Authority. So in case the effluents are coming, how do you measure to know exactly the components that are in there?
All right, thank you. Yes.
There is something here.
Briefly, as also you're preparing your headline thoughts, we need to wind up as well.
Yes, on compensation, that there is, because I'm happy also with authorities here in that area from government. There is a security personnel at Kima, mission charge with a bullet launched in his body for the last 7 years. And this bullet was launched by thieves when they attacked the place. And this fella has been living with this, as we raise the red flag. So he has been living with the bullet for the last 7 years, since that particular time. And we are talking about compensation, we are talking about safety at the workplace. Could we get these authorities, government representatives are talking very well about these issues. What should this person do moving forward for compensation and even being helped to remove this bullet?
Andrew, you want to tackle that because also we're really stuffed for time?
Yes.
And then we'll give our headline thoughts also.
Let me,
briefly, 30 seconds.
Yeah. First of all, this injury or accident should have been reported within 12 months. So if 12 months elapsed without this being reported, then it will not be compensated under the Work Injury Benefits Act. But if it was reported, then assessment of disability will wait until the treatment is complete. So once the treatment is complete, doctors who see the patient will be able to assess for disability. And they send that to DOSH, and DOSH will be able to calculate the figure for compensation.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's get to your headline thoughts. Albert, very briefly, 30 seconds.
One of the things which is very important, Kenyans, is that health and safety is a priority, and it is high time as Kenyans we wake up so that we can make sure that our working places are environmentally health and in terms of cleanliness, in terms of what is happening. But more to that, we are approaching the Rape Day. All Kenyans are being invited to make sure that we celebrate the Rape Day on the 1st of May to make sure that Uhuru over 10 million people come and work us. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Leshan.
Safety is for everyone, and it's everywhere. So as you do your activities, this is World Safety Week. Ensure that you are safe at home, safe at the workplace. The biggest menace we have when you talk about safety and the future of work is that the hours hasn't changed. We still have 24 hours in a day. But the devices that we have, iPads, gadgets, cell phones, we are always on data. Previously, 24 hours was sufficient enough because we'd go to work.
Thank you.
So the challenge that we have now is to ensure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Leshan, also let's hear from Andrew Miruka briefly and tell us about Sunday as well, where it's going to be celebrated.
Yeah, the World Day for Safety and Health will be celebrated at the Thika Technical Training Institute in Kiambu County. The I think an invitation has already been sent by our Cabinet Secretary, public invitation. And the activity starts at 9 o'clock and ends at around 1 o'clock. One of the major things that will be done on that day is that companies and workplaces that have done very well in terms of occupational safety and health will be awarded what we call the Occupational Safety and Health
Thank
Awards.
you. And finally,
the government should take a lead on issues of safety at the workplace, because the responsibility is theirs. And two, as we go to Labor Day on 1st, the biggest present that the president should give the workers of Kenya is to do away with the 1.5% levy for housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to appreciate you all. Leshan Darius Taruru, who is the Managing Director, Universal Work, Health and Safety Consultancy Limited. Thank you for coming through. Also, Albert Njeru, who is Executive Board Member of KOTU and also the Secretary General of KUDEA. Thank you for coming through. Also, the Deputy Director of Communications at the Directorate of Occupational and Safety Health, that is DOSH. This is Andrew Miruka. Thank you for coming through this morning. And also, Honorable that is Oboko Milemba, who is a Member of Parliament for Emuhaya and also the former chair of KUPPET. We welcome you and thank you for your participation also this morning on the show. My laptop has, well, it's back. Nyamogo Gogni is saying, all employers must be compelled by law to train workers on health and safety issues depending on the nature of working environment, like fire safety, first aid, proper chemical handling, health and safety training and supervisory skills development to help in compliance. Also, we have Steve Kissinger saying, and the cost of rehabilitation is immense. Government so focused on industrial operations, ignoring office or office workers. Lastly, just one more as we're winding up. We have also Nyamogo Gogni saying, through the Ministry of Labour, the government must ensure that all employers conduct annual environmental audit that will ensure compliance to health and safety at the workplace. Thank you for your contribution and our panelists as well. And we're eagerly looking forward to what will be happening on Sunday as well. Thank you for your participation. You've been watching In the Market here on AM Live. Remember also, we are live in Wajir, that is Wajir East, where there is the by-election taking place, and we'll be joined much later by Salas Apollo to give us an update of what is happening there. Thank you.